because we published, beloved. How are you?
Hello. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited for this.
I am, oh, my face hurts. I'm like, cheesing so hard. I want to talk about this book. Okay, Tara Pringle Jefferson. We need to talk about Bloom How You Must. I love this book. And I'll give folks the subtitle as well. A Black Woman's Guide to Self-Care and Generational Healing. And the part that really for me resonates is the generational healing. And I want us to talk a lot about that today. So thank you for being here. Thank you for writing Bloom How You Must. I love even the concept of how you must, and you explain it in the book. I would love to hear from you about how we got here, how we got this beautiful loving text for Black women, that is intergenerational, that is asking us about our grandmothers and our aunts and the folks in our community who have modeled self-care for us. What made you write this book?
Yeah. You know what's funny about this book is that this is a book that I didn't know that I would write or that I had been kind of
Mm,
writing ahead all along. This book came along because a friend of mine was friends with a Black woman editor who had just hired by one of the big five publishing companies, and this editor posted on LinkedIn and said, I'm looking for books on wellness by Black women. And
yeah.
this friend of mine didn't know that I was thinking about writing a book. She was just like, I think Tara could write one. And she tagged me on LinkedIn. And I saw that and I said, okay, wait, okay, let me think. What's a pitch that I could give her? Cause I'm like, okay, yeah, I can write a book. And I gave her like a 2 sentence pitch about Black women, intergenerational wellness and well-being. Didn't even really have a firm concept of what Bloom could be.
Yeah.
But I wrote that 2 sentence pitch, and that editor, DM'd me and was like, "Let's talk about it." And I was like, "Wait, is it gonna be this easy?" Because that's how publishing works. In fact, it was not that easy. It
Yeah.
was not that easy at all, but that was kinda the genesis of me saying, "Oh, I think I do have a book in me, and if I do have an opportunity in this moment, this is the book that I wanna write. I wanna write
Mm,
about Black men and our intergenerational, conversations that I had been having, over the past decade, and I hadn't really there's certain books that I say are like the mom to Bloom How You Must. Shifting is one of those. The
mm,
Sisters Right, by Tammy,
mm,
Harris. Like, those are, like, the moms, of Bloom How You Must for sure. Um, and I really wanted to center that conversation on wellness and well-being, and that is how everything got kicked off. I didn't end up signing with that imprint, but I'm
mm,
so thankful to that editor for encouraging me to flesh out a full proposal, encouraging me to
mm.
get representation. So even though I didn't end up signing with her, I really am so grateful for her encouragement at that time, because I don't know, how the path would have gone otherwise.
Mm. Uh-huh. Oh my God, I
Yeah.
love that. And so, because I'm all up and through this book, I done read through it. I know that you were already a writer, you were already
Mhm.
someone who was kind of in that space of figuring out your writing voice, but what you talk about in the book is how hard it was to do that and take care of yourself, right? Working through an industry that does not love us back. Publishing over the past 10 years has been, and that's not just book publishing, but also where you came from, like, media, forward
Mhm.
facing media, public facing media, and all of that. So I would love to hear that timeline. So from that moment that you're like, you know what, I could write a book, and then we have a book. What did that timeline look like? How long was that?
Yeah, so that DM was actually my 35th birthday, 2020, and so I took that as a sign. I was like, "Okay, this editor is, like, DMing me on my birthday. this is a sign. I gotta follow this and see
Yeah.
this through. So that was, November 2020 that I got the DM. We talked. I talked to that editor in December 2020, and, my book came out December 2025. So it was
Mm,
full 5 years of working on the book and prepping for it to hit bookshelves. I'd say the bulk of that time, between December 2020 and December 2025, the bulk of it was about interviewing. So
mm.
as early on in the process, I knew I wanted to have Black women's voices woven all up and through. I've been kind of calling it kind of almost like a communal memoir
Yes.
because I wanted to include everybody's as many stories as I could. And again, talking about shifting, talking about sister, all right,
Mhm.
like those are the mothers of Bloom. And so I really set aside, it really did take me about 2 years to do the 100 interviews. I think total, I think I did like 104,
My gosh.
and it was such a gift, honestly. Like, at certain points in the process, I was like, "Why did I set a goal of 100?" Like, that that's a lot of talking, that's a lot
A
of
lot.
people. That's a lot
Uh-huh.
of people. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But it was such a gift though, like, I really felt so fortunate because I was talking to women of all ages. The youngest one was 19, the oldest
Yes.
one was 99, she's
My
101.
yes.
Yeah, she's 101 now,
Wow.
and, having all of these conversations, and they were usually about 45 minutes to an hour, some of them were like an hour and a half depending on how talkative, the women were, but it was such a gift because I even interviewed my own grandmother and got stories from her that I hadn't heard before.
Yeah.
Thinking about her being born in South Carolina, getting sent up to Buffalo, New York when she was just a child,
Yeah.
and even hearing her story, didn't make the book, but even hearing her story about the stark juxtaposition of when she would go back down south in the summers and how she would get in trouble because she was not being raised in that Southern environment,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
she always knew, like, how ridiculous racism was and how ridiculous, like, she just could not has never
Mhm.
been able to wrap her mind around it.
Mm.
And so these conversations just really fed me in a way that I wasn't expecting and in a way that I hoped, I could weave successfully throughout this book so that other people could feel as full as I did as I was
Mm.
interviewing and writing and researching and all of that. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? Listen, and I I am so biased because 'cause I'm a plant person, and so, the ways that you weave in and through this concept of gardening, the gardeners and, the even the concept of blooming how you must and this kind of, framework you provide of treating ourselves like a garden that we are cultivating, that we are pouring into, that will go through these seasons of waxing and waning, and that we have to till the soil, all these things. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I think that the interviews, again, as a social scientist and as somebody who has also conducted more than 100 interviews, that is impressive. Let me just tell you right now, first of all, shout out to you. That is incredible work.
Thank
And it's a work of archiving, right? Some of my
Mhm.
favorite interviews in the book were the folks who were like octogenarians and on up, who were talking about, when I was younger, there was no resting, there was no sitting down. Even when you talk about your own mother, right? This idea like, the kids got to be put through school. I'm gonna have to get another job,
Yeah.
and it was just like, this is just what we have to do. I want to know as you were bringing those stories into the book, because that is such an intimate thing,
Yeah.
and it's such a caring and loving thing to do that, especially with Black women. How did you make decisions about what to talk about and what to include? Because sometimes we don't want the surveillance. We don't want people to know our business,
Yeah.
right? So how did you navigate that process?
Yeah, that's a really great question. That was the hardest part of the whole thing is that I had this just like when you talk about like the archive, right? I had just a wealth of stories, of information. There's one woman, Michelle Smith, she's a poet.
Mm,
Her story is just very small. it starts the mental health, wellness chapter. She talks about being raised by her great-grandmother and her grandmother and all that, and I could have written a whole book just on that family. I am obsessed. I'm like, I'm book number 2 might be
Yeah,
on 4 generations of those women.
yeah.
Obsessed, and I wasn't able again, I wasn't I coulda done, like, 30 pages on them. And I was like, "I'm just gonna put this snippet in here, and I'm going to, continue to weave as much as I can, through all everybody else." But selecting which stories and selecting, how to put them in, honestly, I said, "Okay, Bloom is one container, right?
Yeah.
Bloom is one container for these stories, but I'm interested in having them in bloom and then continuing that conversation. So there's a lot that didn't make it into the book that I am currently putting together as like
Mm,
exhibit,
great.
installation where you can walk in, you can hear these women, you can, I talk about one of the women that I interviewed, one of the gardeners. She talked about her mom having, her little, like her friend club, her
Yes,
friendship group,
yes,
and they had logos, they had T-shirts,
yes.
they had little wine glasses with the logo printed on them, and I want to display that, right? Like, I want us to be able to see with our own eyes, this is what community looked like for these women. This is the intention and the care that they put into it, and how can we take something away from that and then kind of embed it into our own lives? So, um I think that was one of the things that helped me with it, deciding what to include. Because I said, "This is just one container.
Yes.
These stories and everything, they can live in a lot of different places." So that made it a little bit easier, to say, "This is what makes it in here," because there's other places. I have a whole website that I'm working on. There's so much.
I
There's
love
still
that.
so much to come. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that because 'cause I'm like, I wanted more. I was like, I wanna hear from these women, and I think that the conversations you brought in were so thoughtful and nuanced. So just to give folks who haven't read it yet some indication, the chapters are laid out about these different ways we must bloom, right? You talk about our spirituality, our emotionality, our connections to loved ones and friends and friendship groups. You talk about how we pour back into ourselves. You talk about rest. And, I think what was really interesting for me is it felt almost, and this is not to say, I hope this doesn't sound bad, it felt almost clinical. Like, I felt each chapter, I
Mm.
was like, I wanted to read because I'm like, "Okay, now let me" as a Virgo, I was like, "Okay, so what's the next part of my life, the next dimension of my life I need to work on," you know?
Yeah.
And it was like it felt clinical, but also, and I think this is the way you frame it is through these oral histories and oral storytelling. So where I think institutions would make it clinical, you make it personal. And
Mhm.
so I don't know how you did that. And this might be random too. Even when I talk to you, I feel like sometimes this is how you speak. You're very calm, and you speak in a way that is commanding without lecturing. And the book comes through for me the same way. It was like talking to a friend who's like, "Hey, friend, you need to do better. You need to take care of yourself." Like the whole book kind of comes through and there's an honesty where you're like, listen, I was doing this with 2 children. I was doing this trying to figure out what my 30s were going to be looking like. I was also doing this and sometimes not being as successful as I wanted to be. So I say all that to say there's a honesty here and a vulnerability here. How did you bring that into a publishing process? Because a lot of publishers do not reward that, especially people who look like us. So how were you able to hold on to that and then also publish this book in a mainstream publisher?
Yeah, I think and again, I talk about that first editor, who ultimately passed on the book.
Mm, yeah.
But I ended up at a publishing house where my, direct editor is a young Black woman, and then the senior VP who also worked on the book and gave notes and helped throughout the editing process, another, Black woman. Like, my entire team,
Black.
publicists, everybody, Black women.
Incredible. Incredible.
Which I felt really, really blessed by because there was a lot of things in there that didn't need explanation or they understood. And I loved reading their notes because even when they were offering me like really specific feedback, I could tell that they caught, the nuances of what I was trying to do and what I was trying to say. And they, in fact, when you talk about vulnerability, like my editor, Michaela,
Mhm.
she would say, "I feel like you're tap dancing around something here," and,
Oh,
like, say it straight, like, say it, full out, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like, this is my first time, in the publishing process, I'm not quite sure how things are
yeah.
gonna land, if there's pushback, I'm not I'm navigating this in real time, and so there were a couple of sections where she would be my editor would be, very encouraging to go deeper, go further, say more,
Yeah.
expand here, I love this part, and it was really encouraging for me to share things, and I know I wrote a lot, my, like, scrap file, where I took things out of the book, that's a whole, like, 80 pages, like,
Wow.
it's full, I could go in there and create a whole couple new chapters.
Yeah.
Um, but for the most part, I do feel like that vulnerability was encouraged, and I know
Um,
I'm fortunate in that respect because a lot of folks don't have that same publishing journey, same publishing experience. But yeah, I would say that vulnerability was encouraged, and it was also encouraged because of those conversations that I was having,
mhm.
specifically with the women around vulnerability. Um,
Uh-huh.
women Valencia, she, I think, had one of the most powerful stories
Mm.
about vulnerability and saying, like, these stories, these things that happen to us, we're not the only ones that have these things happen to us. And when we're vocal about it, when we share them, other people can find us. And
Yeah.
then we can connect and we can heal together.
Mm.
And I was really trying to internalize as much of this as I could because they gave me strength too to tell my story and
Mm.
tell it plain, right? I don't want to just, mind their lives for good stories, and then I'm over here in the corner like, "Well,
Right.
you
Right.
can you can do what they say." No, I wanted to show up as fully as I could as well.
Mm. Oh, I wanna read the book again. I might have to read it again. There was I distinctly remember sitting in the car and I was driving, because I just moved to DC area, and I was driving, it was dark at night, and I didn't know where the hell I was going, and it was the chapter on pleasure and desire, and I was sitting in the car, and it's late at night, and I'm going, "Yes!" I'm like I'm shouting in my car, right? Because the ways that you are so honest about the somatic experience of self-care and the ways that we have to disabuse ourselves of these lessons that our pleasure doesn't matter or that our bodies are not ours. And even I remember the story, the young woman who said, "Yeah, I got tired of doing my hair, so I got sister locks." And I
Mhm.
was like, I've never read in a book where we've actually been honest about the fact that, hey, there's just some things about caring for myself that I'm gonna make easier, right?
Yeah.
Like, you see me with this top knot. This top knot, I've been looking forward to this lock top knot for 2 years because I'm like, I can't wait to take this hair and put it up in a bun and walk away, you know? And so I think when I hear the vulnerability in having a team of people who say, you don't have to explain that. It's because someone like me is gonna pick it up and go, "Absolutely.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
absolutely how this feels in my body. That's absolutely the choices I've been trying to navigate, but sometimes don't have the words or feel safe enough to say it," you know? So
Yeah.
I'm wondering, so you talked about your team, and you said that this initial editor encouraged you to get representation.
Mhm.
So did you have the idea fully fleshed out before you had this full team, or was it kind of a collaborative process that this book developed after you were kind of figuring out who the team was gonna be?
Yeah. So that first editor, I think I gave her maybe, I don't know, maybe like 15 pages of like a
Mm,
kind of mini proposal type situation. Wasn't a full-fledged, wasn't a full sample, just things that I had been thinking could work in the book. I don't even know if I had the 100 gardeners in there at that time. I think that came a little bit later. But for the most part, I had a good idea of what I wanted to do, how I wanted readers to feel after they
yeah.
finished reading it. Because I had been, for a while, I had this project called the Self Care Syllabus, where I would be looking for books, particularly by Black women on wellness to recommend to folks in my community. And I'm always searching, I'm always looking. And there's been a lot of great books. We talk a lot about nonfiction books
Mhm.
all the time. And there's been a ton. There should be more.
There should be
But
more.
there's been a lot of really great work being done, by Black women, and I wanted Bloom to be able to sit beside those books, in a way that made me feel really proud, and, so I definitely was trying to find representation. It took me a minute to find an agent that, I really felt like um, we could work very well with, and when I finally found my agent, Christina, oh like, that woman is godsend. Like, she truly believed in Bloom more than I did. I was
Mm.
having all of these, like, doubts and questions and fears. The book ended up, going to auction. And I was so like, "I don't do that," like, "This is my first book. I don't do this.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening. My nerves are all over the place. I'm about to pass out." And she was so calm. She was like, "Girl, this is what's supposed to be happening for you. Like, this is good. Like, this is, breathe. We can, we're working through this together." And I'm so thankful that at every step I felt like my team has always been like a really true champion of my work. My editor, the day the book came out, I mean, I don't know how many copies she got, but everybody in her family got a copy of,
Yes.
because this is my baby, but this is also like her first solo like acquisition.
Wow.
And so she is, really excited by it and by it being out in the world as well. So um yeah, I just, I really do feel like I came to the project not necessarily with all the details, but the vision for what it could be and what I thought it could be, it is. And it's even more than that because I around the time I had the vision for the book, I also had the vision for like the exhibit because I want Black women to be in spaces where they see themselves and they see their stories and their histories. Um, that's truly, truly important to me.
Mm, mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's the preaching component of the book too. We're not gonna get too deep in the Christianity part because 'cause I'm a heathen, but, I'm like, the Christianity and the spirituality of the book too, you do come across a little bit like a preacher. I'm just like, and I know D. Danielle's all up and through the book too, so I'm like, it really made me have this proverbially, like, come to Jesus moment,
Mhm.
in my own spiritual life as well, and so I do see this book as, and I think that this is in a womanist tradition, this is very much, and I identify as a Black feminist, and we don't have to break down the differences between Black feminism and womanism, but you have the iconic quote in the book from Alice Walker, that womanism is the feminism, what lavender is the purple. And
Mhm.
so it's very clear that you also are navigating through this conversation on Black women's self care and our intergenerational healing from a place of rootedness in our ancestors and elders' lessons. So
Mhm.
I'm wondering in terms of taking a book like that, right, to a publisher, and we know that publishing is overwhelmingly white. We know that most reading audiences, unfortunately, who are able to access books, unfortunately, are overwhelmingly white, and those are the books that are promoted.
Yeah.
How were you thinking about how to situate this text when you got to the kind of the marketing questions, the developing the cover, and how were you thinking about what to do next as this book was making its debut into the world?
Yeah. I have always, like, when you talk about, like, the cover even, for example, like, there was a couple of different cover versions
Yeah.
where, um it was more so, you couldn't really see faces,
Mm,
of the people, of the women, because I said I wanted Black women on the cover, and there was a couple of, versions where you could just see, like, from the neck down and, like, they're together, and I love that togetherness piece, and, like, they're leaning on each other, I love that, but I wanted it to be, at first glance, like, there's Black women on the cover, like, I wanted that
yeah.
for sure, that was one of the things that I was like, "Yes,
Yeah.
this is what I'm going for." Um, and when it came to the marketing of it,
Yeah.
um, piece I'm still figuring out, right, in real time.
Mm,
In real time, figuring out, um, what it looks like. One of the things that I've found so far, is situating this book in spaces where we can have those sister circles, where we can get
yeah.
together and really talk, not just about what's in the book, but what's in their lives, what's going on. Because one of the most powerful things that I've discovered is giving a Black woman a chance to speak her truth, giving her a
Mm,
chance to say something out loud that maybe she hasn't been able to vocalize yet.
mm.
A lot of Black women are, and I do not have to. I'm preaching, to somebody who knows, right?
Come on. Mhm.
Um, but a lot of, like, we just carry things quietly. We just carry things inside of us, and we don't always have those spaces. Even if we're at a sister circle, even if we're not talking, even if we're just listening and absorbing, other people's stories and other people's comments, there's not there is um I always want to provide those spaces because I have always walked away feeling like my shoulders, can settle a little bit. I'm breathing a little bit slower. I'm not as tense. And so I think that has been one aspect of the marketing because again, I care, how many books this sells. I got 2 kids, about to have 2 kids in
Come on.
college. I care very
Come
deeply
on.
about
Yes.
how this book.
All right.
Um,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yes, I care very deeply about it. But I also care about, I spent 5 years, working on this book and writing on this book because I care about this message and I care about Black women feeling like they can put something down and they can pick something up that's just for themselves. And I care deeply. A lot of people can buy the book, right? Like you can buy my book and then it sits on your shelf and you don't do anything with it. That's not really what I want. It's, a sale is a sale, but I really do want you to read the book. I want you to
Yeah.
feel like um you are a part of this. Even if I didn't interview you myself, like you see yourself in some of these gardeners and you are able to um you're able to see yourself clearly. I think
Yeah.
that was one of the biggest compliments that I received when I was doing another interview for the book. One of the readers, she said that after she got done, she said that she trusted herself so much more. Like she felt very grounded in who she was and where she came from.
Mm.
And it don't take much to make me cry, but
Come
I was
on.
like, that, that was the best compliment because I don't sit up here and try to present myself like I got it all figured out. And if you just do these 4 things, like that'll get you to where you need to be. It's really about you and your journey. And the best thing that I can do is sit and develop some prompts, for you to go deeper for yourself and interrogate your own story. Because I cannot sit here and write a book that's, relevant directly to 10 million Black women in one. That's not what books are for.
Right.
And so I very much hope that, the people who pick this book up, that they are able to have conversations around it. I think that's my favorite thing so far is hearing people say, "Oh, I'm reading this with my mom and we're on chapter."
Mm.
or I'm reading this with my sister, or, my women's group at church is reading it, or, I love hearing things like that. And the more that I can lean into that, the happier I feel like this book marketing process is going.
Yeah. Listen, I tell you what, I definitely, as soon as I finished it, went to my book group and dropped and said, "Hey, everyone, we're gonna have to read this because, this is reading me for filth. I feel seen." And I just wanna draw attention, to the cover because, these are young women, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I appreciate here that you situate these young women and the way that they look is so to me, it feels very spiritual and very grounded. And they look like they're growing, right? Like this looks like this the whole cover looks like it looks botanical and floral, and I think that it was important even I think there's a conversation you have in the book. Is it your niece that you're talking
Mhm.
to?
Yeah.
And the ways that you center young Black women who, in my opinion, are frequently misunderstood and overlooked and erased from these conversations, and I think they're erased in ways that are so problematic because that is our job, right? Our job as folks who I think about Toni Morrison all the time is that she says if you are able to free yourself, your job is to go back and free somebody else, right? And so I appreciate that you are so deliberate and
Mm.
intentional in that work. The fact that you didn't just talk to one age cohort. You didn't just talk to the folks who've been here 100 years. You didn't just talk to Gen Xers or millennials. You span the entire gamut of what Black womanhood is and how we are moving through the world. That's why I think this book is going to have so much longevity. Like I think this book is going to be something that people just keep picking up and sharing and talking about. And it's not anchored or tethered to just one time period. I think that this book is gonna outlive all of us, you know? And so I wonder for you, because I've seen the book everywhere. I had to go figure out who you were because I was in the bookstores and I'm like, I keep seeing this book and I need to talk to the person who wrote this book.
Yeah.
In terms of like a book tour and all of
Mhm.
that, did you set up a ideal plan for what a book tour would look like? Did you wanna just go talk to specific groups of people, or how did that unfold for you?
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to do with the tour itself was I wanted to, as you were talking about, like, that longevity piece, I know that, to be very frank, be very honest, I worked a long time on this book, so I didn't wanna just have, like, 4 book stops and then be done. So
Mhm.
I was like, "How can we keep this going? How can we keep this momentum rolling?" And, I've done, kinda like the traditional, book talks in Black-owned bookstores. I did my, book launch events at a Black-owned bookstore here in Cleveland.
Yeah.
There's only one, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but it's bomb. Like, it's, like, the best, bookstore slash
Drop the
community
name. What's
space.
it called?
3rd Space Reading Room.
Earthfest,
So
come
yeah,
on,
3rd
yeah.
Space Reading Room. They do amazing work. So I've done a lot of, work with them and with libraries, kind of the traditional book tour events and venues, but now I'm also working with, here in Ohio, we have this group called Queens Village, and they have different chapters all over the state. And it started as a Black women's maternal mortality initiative to try to get the numbers down. And it's really morphed into this beautiful collective of Black parenting. So I think they do, invite everybody kind of, with different events, different, gender,
Yeah,
um, yeah, different genders. But, yeah, it's just, I enjoy, working with organizations like Queens Village and there's a couple in Boston that I'm in talks with. Like, I really do feel like this book can be situated wherever Black women are.
that's right.
It can be situated wherever Black women are, and if I can talk to us as a collective, we can talk to each other. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna figure it out how to get there. If we gotta do it virtually, we do it virtually. But this is work that I have been doing for a while now. I've been online talking about
Mhm.
self-care as a Black woman since, like, 2008 officially, 2004 even less officially, and so I'm this is my life's work, right? Like, there really isn't another option for me. I'm always gonna be doing this work, and I think very deeply about women like my mother, like my
Mhm.
grandmother, like my great-grandmother. Every single time I'm having a book talk, every single time, like, I bring them with me in the room. It's the marketing portion and the book talks, like, it's a lot of work.
Yes,
Like, I
it
wish
is.
I had an assistant. I need an assistant.
Ooh.
Um, but, I'm making it work little by little, and I think it's the connections that I've had that have really made this work. Some of my mentors, women that have been in my life since I was 16 years old, have been I don't know how many copies they have purchased and given out since December, but it's definitely in the double digits. But
Come on.
yeah, they have been gifting it out and telling me about it. My father, I call him Fred the Hustle Man because he has probably sold gotta be closing in on 50 copies. I mean, he's just telling people at work, "Hey, you need to buy this." He's taking orders, he's ordering it from the bookstores, he's going around town. Um, yeah, he Fred the Hustle Man is doing his big one for me. So I really, really appreciate all these people,
Yeah.
who've been helping make Bloom's reception, what it is.
I love that. I love that. You talk about I think you said your spouse as well was selling some
Mhm,
books. I sold a book
mhm,
today. I
mhm.
love that because, your book also really tells the story of the power of community, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
how Black women in particular, we build out spaces, and sometimes when there isn't one, we just intuit it, we just kind of make it happen. And I really love that about the book because, it also, whether it intends to or not, pushes back against this narrative that we don't have each other's back. And I think
yeah,
that is just such a strange fallacy.
yeah.
It's just so incorrect. Black women just keep saving one another over and over and over again. And every time I meet another Black woman, they say, "Yeah, Black woman saved me." And so I love that your book is a kind of literary exemplar for what that means for us to be saving ourselves and saving each other. Um, is there anything when you think back on the publishing journey, when you think about, the totality of Bloom, anything that you wish you knew at the beginning, that you know now?
That's such a good question. Anything that I wish I knew? Um, I think I wish I'm kind of a natural worrier, right? Like anxiety on 100,000 before this book came out. Just
Mhm,
like you don't know. You don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know if your book's gonna come out here and it's gonna be like,
mhm.
it's like, oh, I thought y'all was gonna like y'all didn't like okay. So yeah, anxiety was on like 100,000 before the book came out, and I've been fortunate enough now to be in community with women who've published books and let me know like, hey, girl, this is part of the process. Like, it's okay. You're not gonna pass out. You might feel close to it, but you're
Come
gonna
on.
be okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna be okay. But I think the thing that I wish I had known was how much people would be willing to help and willing to support. My mentor that I mentioned a couple minutes ago, I asked her to be part of my like launch team. And I had like just a couple of like requests and everything, like, if you could pre-order the book or when you see my stuff online, share it and share the link is always, super helpful. And she has just gone above and beyond. I get probably maybe 2 emails a week of her
Mm.
connecting me with somebody. There is a local foundation here that is working on a Black women's sabbatical fund, and she
Yeah,
could me with them, to for me to talk to them about my research and my work, and I'm like, I these are things that I never thought would happen, before the book was published, and so I really would go back in time and just remind, like, "Girl, you have people,
that's
you
right.
have people," and understanding that it's those people who help make this journey what it is. I think I wrote on Substack sometime last year, like, I didn't realize that publishing a book is not like a 2 to 3 person job, like, this it's, 100 people,
Yes,
help launch a book. Like, it's
yes.
not just you and your editor, it's not just you and a publicist. It is all hands on deck, like, everybody's involved, and the more that I lean on my people, or the more that I let my needs be known, the greater chance that that can actually be fulfilled, and people can step up. People can also do things in ways that I couldn't even have predicted.
Mm,
Had I known that a foundation was trying to do a Black women's sabbatical fund? Mm-mm. But
mhm.
she read the book and she made that connection, and so now, things are happening, which I'm really thankful for. And, yeah, I really do wish that some of the nervousness is natural and everything, but just remembering, like, you have people,
Yeah,
lean on your people, and they will help make this process, smooth.
yeah. That's a word.
Yeah.
That's a word. I can relate. When that book was coming out for me, I said, "I don't know if I can do this." I had to sit in therapy and say, "Lord, please help me. I don't know."
Mhm,
I
mhm.
feel, once you've done all that work and writing is such an isolating practice, you go
Yeah.
off and you've done interviews, so yours has a different framework, but the actual writing, you just gotta write it and you're off by yourself, and
Yeah.
so I think that's so important what you're saying that people do want to help, people do want to support. We hear so much about gatekeeping and all of that, but I agree with you. I have had a lot of Black women in particular open
Yeah.
doors for me that I did not know were doors. I thought they were walls. And they said,
Yeah.
actually, there's a door here? I think that's
Mhm.
absolutely true. If there was one thing on this entire journey that you could change, what would it be?
One thing that I would change. I think I alluded to this before with my agent and like people being champions of my book and of my work. Um, and at times, like I said, my agent, she believed in it, more than I did. And we would get a rejection from somewhere and she'd be like, yeah, that's fine. These aren't our people. And
Yeah.
we will keep going until we find our people. She was not phased in the
Mm,
slightest. Which I absolutely love that about her. And so I think if I could go back and change anything, it's just really standing firm in like that vision and standing firm in like what I was trying to create and why I so desperately like wanted it to exist, like to be able to hold it. Um, because at times, I know but this process, you can doubt yourself a
that's right.
lot.
Yeah.
And you can wonder, is anybody gonna read this? And I
Mhm.
spent 5 years writing this and for what? Like you get in your head a lot. Um, when it came to, sales and all of that, like, I don't check sales, I don't check to see how the book's doing. I don't look at any of that because I know it would drive me crazy. But I said to myself, maybe, uh 6 or so months before the book came out, I was like, "My job was to write the best book that I could." That was
Mhm.
my job. My job isn't to see where it's positioned at Barnes& and Noble and Books A Million and all of
Mhm.
that. Like, my job is to write the best book that I can, do what I can as far as promotion and all of that, and kinda let the rest, kind of fall where it may. I think,
Mhm.
one of the best pieces of advice that I got is that books are not movies.
Mm.
They're not like singles, they're not songs, they're not like they are slow art. And so they have time to breathe. They have time to find their people and find circles. Sometimes we feel like they don't. We kind of feel like they're movies. Like, hey, my book just came out, and you got to see it this weekend. You don't. Like, it's great.
No.
It's great if you get it when it first comes out or in the pre-order period. But there's time. There's time for that and to really breathe and really sink into that idea of that abundance of time. Because sometimes, particularly as, creatives, writers, there's always kind of like this pressure, to put it out, and then you kind of forced to like, okay, what's next? What's the next thing that you're gonna do? And I'm enjoying sitting with this book right now. It's only been out, I guess it's almost been out 3 months now, but
Yeah,
mm, but yeah, like it's definitely, um, yeah, it's definitely been a great ride so far, and I've learned a lot. I can't wait for book number 2.
same.
Yeah, yeah, can't wait because I've learned so much. Like, I'm not a baby in the process. I
Mhm.
more knowledge now. I'll probably still be asking, some questions, but I feel so much more confident in having completed this that yeah, book number 2. Yeah. I'm ready for it.
I
Mm,
love it. I love it. So
yeah.
if there's anything I would love to know for other first time authors, this podcast is focusing on Black and queer authors, folks who are Black first, but if you're queer also, this is a podcast for you. But wondering if there's anything you want to share for folks who are like, I wanna write. I have a book in me. This is something I wanna do. What bit of encouragement or advice would you leave them with?
Yeah. I would say to find your people. Um Especially during that writing, pitching, but if you're trying to do traditional publishing, if you're trying to do self-publishing, same thing. But to find your people. I don't know, I know that the journey to publication, it was rough, it was a lot
Yeah,
of nerves and a lot of doubts and a lot of ups and downs. But one of the things that helped keep me relatively level, is having those friends who had published books or were writing, proposals around the same time. And I know when I was pitching, when my agent had my proposal out there, and I was like, okay, it's been a month, like, when are we gonna start hearing stuff? Even if it's rejections, like, I just wanna know where we are. And, um, my one friend, L'Oreal, who published maybe a year or so, 2 years before I did,
yeah.
like, "Girl, just, it'll happen, like, you're worried about it." And she said, "Just go on vacation. Just go on
Mm,
vacation and, let it be what it is." And do you know I went out of town? And I got the email from my agent that we got an offer when I was in line waiting for the rental car.
come on.
I was like, not her telling me to go on vacation and I get a deal on vacation.
I love that.
So so yes, like I couldn't have scripted that any
Mm,
better. Um
mm,
and so yeah, that would be my advice is to find your people because especially people who are a little bit ahead of you on the journey. And even if you don't know anybody, reaching out to people always, it may not work with everybody, but
yeah,
it will work with somebody.
yeah,
Because a lot of people, particularly, all of the Black women authors that I know, they have been so generous with their time. They've been so generous with their support. I know when people ask me for advice, I'm always like, yes, I will help you. Because I remember feeling like I don't know what's going on. I do feel like
mhm,
headlights. I don't know what these words mean. They're using all this publishing jargon, and I gotta ask them, "What does it mean?" And I feel stupid.
mhm,
But I'm
mhm.
like, I'm happy to help how I can. So finding those people, especially those who are maybe a few steps ahead of you, oh, it truly made all the difference for me.
I agree. I
Mhm,
agree. I agree.
mhm.
I am I'm so happy this book exists. I've already told you I've been praising you all over the internet. I am fangirling a little bit. Um, I would just love to know what is next? Where can folks find you? How do they get tapped in? Your sabbatical work is so important. How do people find that stuff as well? And what's next?
Yeah, yeah. Well, what's next is that exhibit. I've been working on that probably since I finished the manuscript. So almost close to a year that I've been working on the exhibit. I've been applying for different grants and everything to help me fund it. It's gonna be phenomenal because it's gonna be, yes, the stories of the gardeners and photographs and curated artifacts from their lives, but it's also gonna have poetry. working with some different poets to include some of their work that's very much aligned with Bloom, as well. So it's gonna be a beautiful, beautiful, exhibit, lots of, beautiful floral arrangements and such. So, that is a project that I'm really looking forward to this year, and people can find me, and I'll be posting all of that information, on my website, on Instagram, Where Women Bloom. I will definitely be sharing all of that, and then in the meantime, I'm trying to give myself enough mental space, so that book number 2 can emerge. I think right now my brain is like, it almost feels like having a baby and, you have a 3-month-old, and it's like you're trying to think about having another baby. Like, it's not really it's not really that time yet.
Yeah. I love that. That's absolutely right.
It's not really that time. Give me a little bit of time to get my bearings. Mhm, let me get my bearings a little bit. Yeah.
I'm grateful for you, and I have to end the podcast with my signature phase. We published, beloved. You did it. You did it. This is an incredible work. I hope that you have celebrated yourself. I hope that amidst the book tour, because I know book tours are a lot, I hope that you are finding time to just sit and just go, I did that shit. Like you did that. And it's such a beautiful I've been saying veneration so much since I read your
Mm,
book because I think that we don't use the word properly
mhm.
enough. And so you have this whole section where you talk about not worshiping our ancestors and elders, but venerating them.
Yeah.
And I just think that your book is such a veneration of our ancestors and our elders and all these Black women who came before us. So
Mhm.
I'm just grateful for you and congratulations. I'm proud of you and keep going. I can't wait to read whatever comes next for you. I am like, I'm sat. Okay?
Yes.
I'm set.
Thank you. Thank you. That fills me up. And, like, particularly coming from you. Like, I have to say, like, coming from you whose opinion that I just truly respect, so much, as a intellect, as a fellow author, like, yes, that fills me up. Thank you. Thank you.